At the beginning of the 20th century, there was a blank space left on the world map, not because no one had tried to draw it, but because no one had conquered it. The South Pole, a place that belonged to no empire, a place that did not recognize flags, borders, or national pride. But Europe, at that time, saw it differently. It was the age of races, an arms race, an imperial race, and now, a race to the last untouched point on Earth. When Captain Robert Falcon Scott left Britain, he carried more than supplies and instruments. He carried the pride of an empire. The British Empire, the one where the sun never sets, could not afford to lose a race into the unknown. But far away, in silence, another man was preparing. Roald Amundsen. Calm, methodical, cold, like the ice he intended to cross. And that is where the difference began. Scott believed in modern progress, in experimental motor sledges, in Siberian ponies, in the idea that technology would conquer nature. Amundsen believed in something simpler. Dogs, polar experience, relentless, calculated preparation. When Scott's engines failed within days, it wasn't just mechanical trouble. It was a warning. When the ponies began sinking chest-deep into soft snow, it wasn't bad luck. It was reality. Soon, the men themselves became the engines, dragging sledges weighing hundreds of kilograms, breathing air that burned their lungs, burning their own bodies from within just to survive another mile. And then, on January 17th, 1912, after months of suffering, they reached the South Pole. They saw a tent, a black tent, the Norwegian flag waving in the wind. Amundsen had arrived 34 days earlier. Scott wrote in his diary, "The worst has happened. All the daydreams must go. Great God, this is an awful place." The horror was not in the ice. It was in the truth. They had lost. But losing the race was not the end. The return journey was the sentence. Over 800 miles back across endless white emptiness. No trees, no wildlife, no sound but the scraping of sled runners against frozen snow. The cold grew more merciless. Frostbite began to consume fingers and toes. Edgar Evans, the strongest among them, collapsed first. Not from weakness, but because the human body has limits. Then came Lawrence Oates. His feet were destroyed by frostbite. He knew he was slowing the others down. He knew their chances were fading. On his 32nd birthday, in the middle of a violent blizzard, he quietly said, "I am just going outside, and maybe sometime." No dramatic speech, no heroic pose, just acceptance. He stepped into the white storm and vanished. But the Antarctic does not negotiate. Even sacrifice was not enough. Only 11 miles away from a supply depot that could have saved their lives. Another blizzard trapped Scott and his 2 remaining companions inside their small tent. For 9 days, they waited. Scott did not scream. He did not curse his fate. He wrote. He wrote letters to the families of his men. He praised their courage. He explained that their failure was not from lack of bravery, but from cruel misfortune. When search parties found them months later, they were frozen in their final positions. Scott lay between his companions, one arm draped over his friend Wilson, as if they hadn't been defeated, but had simply fallen asleep. History remembers Amundsen as the victor. It remembers Scott as the tragic hero. But the question remains, was Scott a victim of his ambition, a prisoner of national pride, or a man who believed that willpower could overcome anything? Perhaps the South Pole did not defeat them. Perhaps nature was never the true enemy. Perhaps the most dangerous force is not the storm, but the belief that we are prepared for it.